welcome to blog 30 of Tackle the Feelings Before the Behaviour. And today's blog is going to be called Helicopter Parenting, the Risks. So a lot of you might have heard about helicopter parenting and know a little bit about how it's that really engaged parenting, over-involved parenting. And today I want to talk a little bit about briefly what it is, about why it happens to parents, and then the risks of this type of parenting and what it does to impact your children. So the first thing to say about helicopter parenting is helicopter is a perfect name for it. If you think about it, a helicopter buzzes around overhead with a bird's eye view of the whole situation, looks out for the risks of what's coming and clears the way, shines the light ahead, and acts as a guide for people down below. So if you think about it, the parent is hovering over the child, shadowing the child, making sure that everything's smoothed out of their way, that all roadblocks are smoothed out, that the child doesn't have to go through any hardship. And they are doing things for their children that their children should be doing for themselves. So there's a really good intention in helicopter parenting. The parents are doing this to protect children. They're doing it because they want to help their children not have difficulties, perhaps difficulties that they had to go through themselves. And it becomes really tricky because it is so loving. It is a real act of love. But that same act of love is actually incredibly harmful for children. So you have to look at, why do parents do this in the first place? Why do they feel the need to grip on so tight that they don't actually trust that their children can do anything for themselves? They don't trust that they've done a good enough job in parenting, that they've taught them the skills to do things for themselves. So there's been four main triggers that I sort of agree with that have been identified as to what goes on for parents. And the first is a fear of dire consequences. So they've got a bit of helicopter parents seem to have a bit of a perception challenge, so to speak, with how something like failing at school with a failed grade, or not making a team, or being rejected by a group of people, or getting told off, or getting something wrong, or just going through the normal things that everybody goes through in life at some stage or the other. They're so scared that there's some dire consequences for that their child's going to suffer, that suffering is going to be really bad for the child. So there becomes a real fear there with parents that the challenges that life faces us is too much for our particular children to bear. So it's that fear of dire consequences. Another thing that triggers parents are those feelings of anxiety, and this is usually coming back from as a parent, your own fears, because the world for you has been an unsafe place, and you bringing this precious parcel, this precious child that you love with everything in your heart and soul, into the world that you feel is unsafe. So naturally you feel that the world is unsafe for the child as well. So there's a real anxiety about the world, about finances, about whatever it is that you're worrying about, this anxiety of the world being unsafe, which comes from under-regulated fear in childhood. This is a fear-based response, this parenting response. So it's usually under-regulated fear in some way, shape, or form, which takes away that feeling of security and safety and consequences. So that anxiety comes on, and you're passing that on to your child. So another trigger is overcompensation. So this comes from those parents who, as children themselves, were often felt neglected, unloved, and they didn't have somebody protecting and looking out for them. And, as children we say, I'll never be that type of parent. That sometimes is really something that takes hold. You won't. And so you monitor and you want to protect, and you just overcompensate for what wasn't done for you. You so desperately don't want to give your child the same type of childhood you had that you go onto the other end of the spectrum and get to that other extreme. And the last trigger I had down here is pressure from other parents, which can be a big one, and most parents can identify with this to some extent, is that the pressure that parents have, not even just verbally to one another, but watching other parents. So it's almost like it's a domino effect. You see another parent really overly involved, and then you feel guilty about how involved you are. Should I be more like that? And you all seem to match up to these standards that keep growing, and before you know it, everybody is monitoring and helicoptering over their children, terrified that someone's going to have a germ, fall down, scrape their knee, all of that stuff. So the risks, what this does to children, and this is something that in my approach I'm trying to get people to think about, is that you need to understand your role as a parent. And your role as a parent is to help your children feel safe and nurtured, supported and loved as they develop enough to become individual, independent beings, people who are their own characters and their own selves in the world, which means they need to feel emotionally safe and secure inside themselves. They need to feel safe in their coping skills, that they are able to do things in life for themselves, life skills, how to take care of themselves. Do they know how to brush their teeth? Do they know how to bath every day, change laundry, do laundry later on, cook for themselves, clean, work out challenges and decisions? And you're teaching them as they're growing, as it becomes more and more age appropriate, you're teaching them more and more how to do things for themselves, how to think for themselves, how to soothe their difficult emotions for themselves. And they do that initially through you. So you can't love a baby enough. That's something I need to say. You cannot love a baby enough. But as they start developing, you need to start letting them hold that spoon. It takes 20 times longer, but you let them eat for themselves, do things for themselves, go to the toilet for themselves, and it goes on and on. So when you don't allow children to go through those developmental milestones and learn how to do things for themselves, they don't learn valuable life skills or coping skills. They don't learn how to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes and understand how to do better next time and what happens, consequences for actions. The list goes on and on and on. If you jump in there every time your children have a problem, they don't learn how to get through those problems for themselves, which means they don't develop confidence in themselves, self-esteem, sense of accomplishment and achievement. They don't challenge themselves and develop their understanding of what they want to be, their potential. And then you do this through trial and error in life, and you toughen up. You learn how to do better. And childhood is like an arena that has some safe pads on the side and an adult monitoring from a distance while you try, and you're that safe harbor. You're not doing homework for them. You're not flossing teeth for them. You're not doing their fighting and their battles for them. You're not phoning the parents of your teenage son's friend who's been horrible to him, or you're not getting involved in their girlfriend-boyfriend relationships. You're there as a guide. You're there to help them as people, not get involved in all the details in their lives and do things for them. It shows them that you don't trust them, that you don't believe in them. And what you really need to be doing is showing them that you believe in them, that you're supporting them, that you love them no matter what, whether they make mistakes or whether they thrive. Them as people are loved to you. So it's risky business, and it's a fine balance. And some kids need a bit more involvement from their parents than others. But you need to gauge that the end goal, is to have that breakaway, which means a lot of self-care for you, a lot of adjusting as they keep breaking away. It's a change of role for you. It's looking after yourself, making sure you still have your own life and doing your own things, so that gaps in when your children need you happen, you have something to fall back on for yourself. They are not your whole world. They are a huge, huge part of it. So I hope that's been helpful. Have a good week. Bye.